What's up, everybody? Welcome to The Revival. My name is JJ, and it's time to talk about the games that I finished in 2022. Alright, so if you have been here a while, you've seen how I do these in the past. I pick 20 games at the beginning of every year to complete and, finish, roll credits on. I don't do the extras on everything, although this year a couple of them I did. But I basically just pick 20 games off my backlog, nothing new, and then I play through them, and then at the end of the year, when I'm finally all finished with all 20, I knock out a couple of videos where I just do little rapid-fire reviews on each one, and just kind of talk a little bit. So this video will be about the first 10 games, and the next video will be about the other 10 games. And this isn't the order that I played them in, just as an FYI, because I typically, I have the list written out, but I still, it just makes it easier to decide on what I'm going to play next. It's way easier to look at a list of 20 than it is to look at all of this and pick one. So that's a big reason why I do it. If you're looking for ways to tackle your backlog, I highly recommend doing something like this. Just make a smaller list of things you want to get done, because it helps tremendously. And ever since I started doing this, I've completed it and beaten at least 20 games a year. And then I, focus on new stuff in between and afterwards. So it's worked out really well for me. Yeah, I like I said, this isn't in the order that I played them. This is just the order I have them listed on my list. So don't really give any credence to the order that I'm saying these in. So first up is The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. I played it on the Wii U, the remastered version. I liked it. It was a little bit long, a little bit longer than I would have liked. It was good, though. It was a lot darker than I was expecting, and I think people had told me that it was before, but when I think of Zelda, I don't typically think of dark or story in general, and the very few times that I do encounter, good story in Zelda, I'm always pretty amazed at how well it's done, so I liked it overall. It was just, it dragged on a little bit too long, and I was definitely ready to be done by the end of it, just because there's so much backtracking and a lot of extra stuff, as the 3D Zeldas typically want to do. So yeah, I try to throw at least one Zelda on the game every year, on the list every year, and this year I had fun with it. Next up is Saga Frontier on PlayStation 1. I got the Platinum because I did it on the remastered version. If you've never played it before and you're curious about that game, I highly recommend going that route, because the original version didn't allow you to carry stuff over from one game to the next. You had to basically start with a clean slate on every one of the characters that you played as. And I really liked that you could carry stuff over, because it made the subsequent playthroughs of the other characters so much easier, and just, you fly through them. Had a few issues with some of the trophies just because they were a little buggy, but I was able to get it done overall, and I had a good time with it. I'm so glad to finally get done with that game, because I've wanted to finish it for years. I had played a few of the stories back on PS1 in the original, and I always just kind of after I would do one or two of the stories, I'd be like, oh, I'm kind of burnt out. I don't want to start over again and do everything over again. And this way, with the new one, you can carry a lot of the stuff over. So it was a lot more friendly, a lot more user friendly that way. So yeah, if you're looking to try it out, I definitely recommend giving it a shot, but play the remastered version. Next up on PS4, I played Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I loved it. I absolutely freaking loved it. I played as Cassandra. If you remember, those of you that have been here for a little while, my friend Elaine was on. We talked about, I think it was The Simpsons Road Rage. And she talked about how much she liked Assassin's Creed Odyssey. She had been asking me to play that game for so long, and I just hadn't gotten there yet in my order of play. And I finally got to it, and I was like, man, I should have played this sooner. Because it was so good. I ended up getting the platinum on this one as well, just because I was having so much playing through it. And I cannot wait to, at some point in the near future, get to the next Assassin's Creed game, Valhalla. And I will be all caught up on the series. So I'm super excited for that. Definitely a wonderful game. I love the open world. I love the setting. It's like every other Assassin's Creed game. If you're playing it for historical accuracy, you ain't playing it for the right reasons. But just to have this giant playground to explore and climb and just run around in, it was a lot of fun. And I definitely recommend checking it out to anybody who likes really gorgeous visuals and just a big, wide open, fun world to explore with a cool Greek setting. So, yeah. I also played Trails in the Sky, second chapter. So I do plan on playing the third one pretty soon because I really like the second one. Man, these games are so long. They're so long, but it was such a fun ride. I love the artwork and I love the story in those games. The first one I loved. This one I loved even more. I'm just really enjoying my time with the Trails series in general. So I cannot wait to dive into the third one eventually. And it's hard for me to recommend to people who aren't into RPGs because it's very long and it's definitely a time sink. So it's something you got to devote a lot of time to. But again, the artwork is really cool to look at. I really enjoyed it. If you're into RPGs, definitely check out the Trail series. If you're not, it's hard to recommend that stuff because they're so heavy. So I don't know. But if you ever played like Super Nintendo especially, that's what I would compare it to. It's like a really long, fleshed out Super Nintendo RPG. So great game, really loved it. Can't wait to move on with the trilogy. I also played Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords on Xbox, finally. I've been wanting to play that for years. I just wanted to play the first one first. But I really enjoyed it, and it just like, it seemed to take everything that made the first game great and improved upon it, which is what I love to see in a series. I had so much fun with it. I would love to see a new one at some point. I really liked the online game as well. I didn't play it this year, but I've played it in the past. Just Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic in general. BioWare they did a great job with those games. And I really hope that, we're not at the end of those and not seeing any more, because I would, at some point in the future, would love to see a third entry in the series, because it's really good. Especially if you're a Star Wars fan and you just like seeing that, different time period in the series, and it was just so much fun to go through and play. I always go light side. I'm a good guy. Everybody I know always talks about going dark side. I like being a hero. You know what I mean? I like doing the good stuff. So I don't know, if I ever go back to it again for a second playthrough, I definitely will go dark side. But it won't be for a while. So, but I really enjoyed my time with it. Blue Dragon on Xbox 360. I freaking loved it. I had played it years ago, and I remember it being super slow. Man, it was tough to get into back in the day. But I always told myself, because it's a game by Hironobu Sakaguchi, who, those of you who don't know, is the father of the Final Fantasy franchise, who is one of my heroes. And it is very slow to start, and it still was this time too. But it's like, it's hard to recommend because it's one of those, I hate when games do this, but it's one of those where it's like, oh, just wait till you get to X amount of hours, and then it really opens up and there's a lot of good stuff. In this case, it's like 30 hours in. Because you're on this linear path all the way through, and then the very end just opens up, and the whole world map gives you a ton of objectives and a bunch of freedom and stuff, and it's so cool what you can do at that point. But I did have to kind of push myself towards the beginning of the game, just because I was like, oh no, this is going to be a slog. But once I got to that point, I was like, oh my god, this is great, and I didn't want it to end at the end. So yeah, it was really cool. Chances are, if you love JRPGs, you may have already played this one. If not, again, be patient with it. If you do decide to go to try it, it's not something I can recommend to everybody, but it does open up, it does get better, so it's kind of your own discretion on that one. I can tell you, one of the first games I played this year, I believe it may have been the first, was Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. I was worried because I remember playing it when it first came out and how long it seemed like it was going to be and how many hours I put into it back then and didn't feel like I made a dent. This time, maybe it's just because I'm older and a little bit smarter, I kind of like blazed through it. Like I was able to manipulate the judge system a lot better because back in the day I hated that aspect of the game. I didn't even want to mess with it. But this time going into it, I knew what to do and it just made it easier to swallow. I really enjoyed it. I love games that give you like tactical RPGs in general with like class systems and tons of different races. And the character diversity in that game is so great. I really enjoyed it. Again, it's super long-ish, depending on how you play. I didn't do everything, but I did do a big chunk of it. So it's, it's great, but it's not the same as regular Final Fantasy Tactics, the first game. It's a lot more, it's more like comedic anime versus serious anime, if that makes sense. And I mean, I don't know that I would even call the original Final Fantasy Tactics comedic anime. It's more like just serious fantasy TV show, like live action. Like it's excellent. But long story short, don't dive into it expecting Final Fantasy Tactics like the original. It's a very different game, but it is still worth a shot in my opinion because I really had fun just with the combat system and going through the story as it was. So yeah, good stuff. Next up is a game that my friend Lamont had suggested to me that I had heard of plenty of times but never played, and that was Hitman. And man, I really liked it. It's not a series that I am like dying to get to the other games because it's very repetitive, and if you want to do everything, you're kind of just playing the same missions over and over again to try and do it in different ways. And I think it's one of those games where I think the idea is so cool and so neat, and I love the fact that I could kind of figure out how to do these things on my own without there being a set way of solving the puzzles and doing the jobs that you're supposed to do in the game. I just think that's such a cool concept. As far as like a completionist, that aspect is not for me, no. But I do love the concept, and I think anybody who does like kind of figuring things out and working their way through problems, definitely give Hitman a shot if you haven't, because it is such a cool idea and executed really well. So yeah, definitely recommend that one. Disgaea, Hour of Darkness, the first Disgaea game I ever played. Long game. Again, kind of a trend on this year. There were a lot of them that were really long. I enjoyed the hell out of it. Way more than I was expecting to. I was expecting super cheesy and like overly complicated. It is super cheesy and it's complex but not complicated. There's so much extra stuff to do, but it's all padded on the back end. So if you want to just play through the main story, which is what I did, I had no desire to keep leveling and do all the extra bosses and the challenges at the end and everything like that. It just didn't resonate with me. But I really enjoyed just the main storyline, the characters. It was so over the top goofy, but it was so fun to play and get to know them. And I really enjoyed the combat. Leveling was pretty simple. There were plenty of ways to do it. It's a really fun tactical RPG, but I don't know that I would recommend it to anybody as a first tactical RPG, if that makes sense. I would stick to something simpler like a Shining Force or something like that first. This is going to be a little bit more up there, especially in terms of time you need to devote to it, because there were some difficulty spikes where it required a bunch of grinding. So, it is what it is, but I enjoyed my time with it. I will definitely be moving on with the series at some point. Still putting together my list for next year, so I don't know yet if it's going to be on there. We'll see. But I really did enjoy my time with it, and I'm glad I played it. And finally, on this first set of 10, Metroid on NES, the original Metroid. I actually was expecting to have this take a while and me beating it over the course of a week or something like that. I beat it in an afternoon. It wasn't I did use a guide because I like having the map and I like seeing where everything is and stuff like that. I didn't like follow it to the letter. I kind of just like had it handy in case I needed to find something if I got lost or something like that. So I you know, it was. It's so cool to see the roots of a series like that. Not even a series like that, but a genre like that, the Metroidvania genre. It was just so cool as far as like a historical video game standpoint. I really, really am glad that I finally played it and knocked it off the backlog. I can say that I finished Metroid, the original one. It's not an easy game, but it is one that I think is definitely worth a play. I played it on the Switch, so you can if you are subscribed to Switch Online, give it a shot. It's not a long game. I think it took me like 5-6 hours total. Like I said, I beat it in an afternoon. And even then, you can with the Switch Online, you can save wherever and that kind of stuff. So it's not bad at all. I really enjoyed my time with it though, and I will definitely be playing more Metroid games in the future because I missed out on them growing up, and I kick myself for that all the time. So yeah, Metroid was fun. Alright, so really quick before I wrap this up, I did mention this on Pixel Perspective, but I want to say it here too. Like I said, I am putting my list together for next year. I am asking anybody who wants to suggest a game for me to play. I'm pretty much just like leaving it open, like I'm leaving several slots on my list open. So come into our Discord, send me a private message, tell me a game to play, and I will more than likely put it on the list unless I've played it before. But we'll talk about it, if there's something else you want to suggest in case I've played it before, or if it's not beatable, then by all means we'll set something up. But I've already had somebody reach out to me, and I've got a game that they requested on the list, and I would love to have a couple more people, suggest to me stuff, because this is how I play things that I would normally have not otherwise played. So I just ask that it's beatable, it's attainable, like I can find it or download it or something like that, and that it's like I said, we'll talk about it whether it's something I finished or not. Because if it is, then I obviously don't want to put it on there. But yeah, so do that, and I'm gonna probably, I'll say by the end of the year, that is kind of my time limit here. So you got a month. Just think of a game, reach out to me in Discord, private message me. We'll talk a little bit about it, and I would love to get some games from people, suggestions put on there. So let me know. Guys, thanks for watching. Next week I will have the other 10 games on my list, and we will go from there. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And as always, keep on gaming.